What's up, guys, and welcome to the Rebalance podcast, where we dive into topics that matter most when it comes to overcoming struggles, injuries, and finding balance in your life. Everybody's idea of balance is that bit different, so my goal is to give you different perspectives, practical tips, as well as expert insights into what it means to live a balanced life. My name is Robbie Cassidy. I'm a physiotherapist and a health coach, and I've been helping people reignite their love for challenge, overcome their fear, and find more balance in their life through the process of self-development. So, let's get into it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the podcast. On this episode of the podcast, we're going to do a Q&A. We're going to answer some questions that have been sent in through Instagram and Facebook, as well as questions that I've had from clients and people I've been speaking to over the week. Anyone I told I was doing a podcast at the Q&A, I was asking them what were their thoughts or have they got any questions or anything they would like me to cover. And this is an accumulation of those questions. So before we jump into it, I got a lot of different questions on different things. So what I tried to do is I tried to kind of use themes because I wanted to cover everyone's questions. So I'm going to speak in themes and more so than like I will have the questions themselves. But when there was a couple of questions that people asked them the same way, I tried to change them around. So in that case, we're going to look at themes instead. One running theme that came through was the idea of posture and ergonomics and pain. And people were asking me what are my thoughts on it. And anyone who's listened to this podcast knows that I'm very against using just reductionist views on pain because pain is so complex. And I know you hear people say that all the time, so I'm going to try to explain why it is that bit more complex as opposed to just telling you it's complex. And I'm going to explain why I feel that a lot of the biomechanical approaches are just shite, as in like they're just a silly way of looking at things because they don't make sense, and on first questioning they break down. The mode itself breaks down because there's no backing to it. It's just looking at something and saying, okay, this is the sign, so this is the case. And if we treated everything like that, it'd be a funny world. So I think that they don't rely on principles. They rely on the same, actually what they do is they rely on using the explanations that people use in a mechanical situation, whether you're trying to fix a car or build a house, and then they try to apply that to the body. But the thing about the body is that the body's adaptive. So if you go to the gym and you do bicep curls, your biceps get bigger, okay? It's not that your elbows break down and everything, you need to oil them all up. That's not really the case. And once we understand that, if you go to a house and you build a house and then something like an earthquake or something shakes the house, it's going to cause more damage, but it's not regenerative. But the body is regenerative. And if we have the mindset about that, if we have that kind of mindset around, or we come to the conclusion that, okay, everything is regenerative once we give it the time. Like if you keep doing something with the body, it will break down if you don't give it time to recover. Like if you just did bicep curls for the rest of the day, your body will break down. But if you do bicep curls, you come back, you sleep and you recover, obviously they get bigger. And then you take in your protein and all that around it. So I'm going to preface with that because it's so important to have that idea in mind when you're thinking about these ideas of posture. Like if the foot is a certain position, or if your knees are a certain position, or if your hips are a certain position, or if your shoulders are a certain position, it's been like that your entire life. Generally, has very little to do with the issue if you're dealing with pain. But on the other hand, if you sprain an ankle and now you're getting knee pain a couple of days after you sprain your ankle because you're walking differently, that's a different thing. That's an acute issue that has flared up and is now giving you more trouble. So with this one, like with that idea of posture and pain, if we get a good understanding of how it's going to contribute, and if we get a good understanding of when it's not contributing, then we can have a better idea on what to do in future if it does flare up again. Okay, so that's a preface. I will jump straight into it. First question is, what are your thoughts on pillows and for back and neck pain? Should I buy one or are they all the same? Based off what I just said there in terms of posture and ergonomics and that, I think that a few ways to look at this. If you feel that the pillow that you're sleeping on is uncomfortable, okay, I would recommend going out and buying them. But when you look at the companies that sell these pillows, they're very pillows. I don't know, people say pillows or pillows. I always say pillows. But if you look at the company that's selling these pillows, you'll find that they have very good graphics to describe it. But the graphics are the same as looking at a car, as I described earlier on. And the graphics are more of a construction-based, mechanical base, where they'll show your spine, they'll show you lying down, and then they'll show your neck offline with a pillow. And then they'll show you that their pillow brings your neck in line, which is going to reduce and get rid of all your back pain and all your neck pain. And this is a difficult one to argue against, because I'm always against this one. Like, I've had friends who were getting into e-commerce businesses and they were going to start selling these pillows, like these square pillows or certain ergonomic pillows or certain ergonomic mattresses. And a lot of times I had to just bite my tongue, because I was like, you're selling a solution to a made up problem. The problem isn't actually there. It's not an issue, but you're going to give someone something and then you're going to sell them the idea that this is the issue. And they're going to buy it, and then they're going to think, okay, well, I have my new ergonomic mattress. I have my new ergonomic pillow. My back and neck pain is still there. It hasn't cleared it up. So you're just basically using consumerism to try to clear an issue that's more neurologically based in a lot of cases. And when you use the word neurological, people get a small bit afraid. It kind of scares them, because they feel like when you think about neurological, a lot of people think about like multiple sclerosis or Parkinson's, issues that are like diseases way down the line. But really, when you're looking at these neurological issues, and I did a podcast, it's going to be the one right before this one, on understanding chronic pain and where it comes up out of. These neurological issues are more of like changes in your nervous system in their threshold to pain. So if you've injured your back, your neck, or your shoulder, I won't go into a lot of detail on it now, because if you want to just check out the next podcast, or the one after this one, they have these areas along them that are like, they have fire alarms on them, which I describe as burn spots. And the spot starts firing off every single time that the threshold is reached. And let's say if you've never injured your knee before, but you have injured your ankle loads of times, and then you go out and do a 5k run, your ankle will start flaring up a small bit more than your knee will. And it'll flare up earlier on, because its tolerance and its threshold to pain is lower. Okay, the same goes for, in a lot of cases, let's just use that exact same example, but look at your back, because people will say, oh, your ankle's taking the weight first. Okay, so I'm going to change it. If you go out for a 5k run, you've never had an issue with your knee, but you have had issues at your back, you'll notice your back flaring up first, and then your knee will flare up after as you continue to push on, because the back's threshold of pain is lower and the tolerance of pain is a lot lower. So it will kick up as a result of you moving, it getting fatigued, it hitting the threshold, and then the threshold fires off all the alarms. So we can have pain, really important to understand this, we can have pain without actually having any injury. It's extremely important to understand that, because if you understand that, a lot of these issues and a lot of the things I'm going to talk about, it can be cleared. So what are my thoughts on pillows for back and neck pain? I think it's extremely good marketing, very good images used, good graphics used, really able to kind of tie you in and tell you like, this is the reason that it's all your pain. But in the majority of cases, it's absolute shite. There's no back into it. There's no research on it. The research shows that it has basically literally no effect on it at all, unless you were sleeping on an uncomfortable pillow that you said, okay, this is actually, I would like to get a firmer pillow just because I would like that, then perfect. But you have to understand, we have only figured out in the last, like, we have been sleeping for millennia, like on hard surfaces, on the ground. Let's say we've been sleeping in caves, or for our body is adapted to sleeping in those cases. It wouldn't be evolutionarily right, or it wouldn't be evolutionarily advantageous to give us pain every morning we wake up because we've been sleeping on a cave for the last 20,000 years, longer before that, a couple of million years, obviously. If there was, it'd be a massive disadvantage to give us pain. So why in the last 20 to 30 years have we now figured out that we need actually Dove pillows and a ergonomic mattress that's memory foam? And this is the reason, this is the cause for all the back pain. Now, this is the fix for all back pain and neck pain. Okay, so hopefully that makes a bit more sense, is that the body's extremely adaptive, and in that way it's extremely adaptive in that you can, if you put it under any real stress at all and you give it time to recover, it can change and improve. And I always use the example of, and this is the last I'll say on the pillows, but I always use the example of, they did a study in the 1960s. Now they did this obviously on rats, but it just shows the physiological adaptation of a organic body, or a body that's basically able to heal itself, a restorative body. And they found that when you there was a scientist who gave him shots of cyanide to a rat. And this, I'm just using this as a really simple example, as like, because it's the principle applies. And obviously the same thing in the gym, as I was saying, if you go into a gym and you do bicep curls, you expect your body to be able to continue to do bicep curls, and then you give it a chance to rest and recover, and your bicep gets bigger and stronger. That's a restorative body. That's why it's not like a house, where if an earthquake hits a house and it shakes it, it's going to break it down, and it's not going to have a chance to recover. And that's really important to understand that. So that's why using this mechanical approach is not effective in dealing with these issues because it doesn't give you a full picture. So they were testing rats, and what he was doing is he'd give the rats a small dose of cyanide. Now, cyanide is a poison. It's extremely poisonous to the body. He was giving them small doses every day. And then at the end of it, he gave them just a massive whopper dose, just like a dose that would kill them. And he had found that the rats had built up a tolerance to the cyanide before that point. And as a result, the big dose that should kill them didn't kill them, didn't have a huge effect on them because they were able to build up a tolerance to it. So if natural bodies are able to build up a tolerance to things that are toxic to it, when given to it over short periods of time, that's a great sign that this idea of sleeping is probably not the sleeping position is not the cause of your neck pain, because you've been sleeping that way for the last, let's just say 30, 35 years, 40 years in a lot of cases. But the pain only kicks up every March, and it only kicks up for a week, and then it calms down. So if it was the case that it was your sleeping position and it was that, you would have pain all of the time, every day at the same level, because that would mean that your pain is directly related to your sleep. And if that's the case, okay, grand, change your pillow if you need to. But most likely it has a lot more to do with it. And I think if the better an understanding we get of that, the better understanding that we get that the body is really adaptive and it doesn't just overnight just change, and because of the pillow that we've been using is the effect, that the better we have a chance of actually taking care of the issues that are actually causing the pain. And it might be that you're waking up in the morning with pain because you're sleeping poorly, because your caffeine's really high. That could be another one. It could be that you have pain because you're fatigued, you're not getting proper sleep, your quality of sleep is poor. It could be that you're fearful, you're very stressed during the day, you're not taking on enough water, you're just overall, you need to build more strength. There's so many other aspects of pain, and as I said, check out the other podcast, than what is associated with this. Now, hopefully, I'm going to preface that because like the rest of the podcast is other questions on it, and I want to just continue to back up that point, because that's going to be one of the main points, is that the mechanical issues rarely cause you pain if it's a chronic issue. And it doesn't have to be like, the other thing is people think, oh, like, I don't have chronic pain. I'm not talking about specifically chronic pain, because obviously chronic pain is when it goes on so far. This can happen to everyone. And I put up a video on Instagram. If anyone hasn't seen it, check out Mobility Shooter on Instagram, of a football player, soccer player, Roy Keane. And he talks about how the week they're coming up to a big game, he starts to get all these pains in his body. Basically, it was a stress response in the body and it was starting to kick up. It's a really good example of how we can get pain without injury. And that's why if you're thinking your pillow is the cause of your back and neck pain, most likely it's not the cause of your back and neck pain. There's other things that are going to be bigger contributors to it. But if you don't like the pillow and you want to get a new one, perfect, buy a new one. But don't be thinking that's going to fix everything. That's the case. People think that it's going to fix everything and it doesn't fix it, and then you're looking for the next thing and then you're told it's something else. So you're just going to get caught in that cycle, which leads me on nicely to the next one about what are my thoughts on improving posture. And I had a conversation with a guy during the week on posture, and he was basically saying that his posture has always been bad. And he was like, he doesn't like the look of his posture when he catches himself in the mirror, when he catches himself walking by like a glass door and he sees it. He's like, I'm always trying to correct it. And then he started to go on and say that the posture was related to the pain that he was feeling. But it really, in this case, it's the exact same. Your posture is generally the same all the time. And this is the idea of another absolute, sorry for cursing, bollocks product, is these ergonomic chairs and like desks that need to be your height and stuff like that. If you're sitting at a desk all the time, and think about this, we have been sitting at desks since we were 4 years old and we entered primary school. Okay, we have been sitting at desks since we were 4 years old and we entered primary school. So why is it now in the last 3 to 4 weeks your pain has kicked up? Like, it doesn't, like, let's actually start to question that a small bit more. It doesn't make sense. If we've been sitting at desks for so long, but now your pain is starting to kick up, it doesn't make sense that it's related to your posture, unless something has changed specifically and now you're in this, let's say, really acute change in posture and it's sustained all the time, or like you're bent down and you're working on something on the ground that you haven't worked on before, or you're like, unless it was an acute change. But if it's a chronic issue that kicks up every once in a while, has nothing to do with your posture. It has nothing to do with your posture. There's a great saying, it's that posture doesn't cause pain, it's sustained postures cause pain. So there's no real best posture. The idea of what is a best posture is actually taken from the military, which is an interesting one. That idea of shoulders back and chest out, it's been taken from the military, and it's been applied into life after, because it's a very upright, strong posture. and it's a confident looking posture. Which leads me down the track of, as I say, posture is more of a reflection of your internal than your external environment. Okay, so your best position is your next position in a lot of ways. And what that means is that there's no good posture that's right. Okay, if you're leaning here, that's perfect. If you're leaning on one arm, or if you're leaning on the other, if you're slouching, if you're sitting up straight, like even just try the military posture. Try hold the military posture for the net until I finish talking about posture. Okay, try hold it right now. Chest back, or chest out, shoulders back. See if you can hold that position until I do it, and tell me if that's a comfortable position or if it's an uncomfortable position. And I'll be honest, it's an uncomfortable position. I'm doing it here. Anyone who's watching this, I have it on camera as well, is going to know that it's an uncomfortable position after a while to try hold, because it's not a natural position all the time. We need to always change our posture. Our body is made to move. So as I said, to come back to that, posture is a better reflection of your internal environment than your external. And what I mean by that is that it's your confidence level. How confident you are in a situation has a bigger effect on your posture than anything else. It's so important to understand that. And if we do understand that, you'll see that people who have different postures going into different situations, where you walk into a room and it's all your friends and it's your family, and let's say you're very confident in that situation, you're going to stand with your chest out and shoulders back a small bit more. Maybe not completely, but you will stand in a more powerful posture. Now, if you go into a room and there's a load of gangsters inside the room, or if it's a rough room and you're not comfortable in it, you're going to make yourself a lot smaller, where your shoulders are going to come forward, your head is going to drop, and you're going to turn your feet in, and you're going to make yourself as small as possible to not be noticed in a lot of ways. And if you look at the animal kingdom, it's the exact same thing. So when we understand that our posture changes depending on the things that go on around us. The easiest way to improve your posture is to improve your confidence. It comes back to confidence all the time, and I always push confidence in a lot of cases for a lot of pain, because confidence is such a driver for pain. If you're not confident in your back, you're going to have more back pain with less movement. That's just the case, because your body is going to be a lot more aware of it, and your nervous system is going to give you pain. You don't need to injure it. It can just give you pain because it's not confident in its protective mechanism. As I said, check out that other podcast because I go into a lot more detail on it. If we want to improve posture long term, we need to become aware of it, and we need to become aware of how we can improve our confidence long term. And that's why when you are like a really easy example of like what good posture is, go to the gym, do a chest workout or a back workout. And I don't care if you're like male or female here, if you're a lady or a man, I don't really care what it is or which one you are in terms of like, in this case, if you work on your back, if you work on your chest, and if you work on your legs, and you do a strengthening session in the gym, you will walk out of that gym with better posture because you'll be more confident in yourself. Simple as. That's the easiest way to improve your posture, improve your confidence, and improve your strength. Simple as that. I know it sounds like an easy prescription. Outside of that, then, you're just looking at becoming a bit more aware of it. That's the next thing. Now, when you're aware of it, you can start to change it a bit more. So it may be that, okay, right, I notice here now that I'm slouching, I don't like that posture. Okay, and I have a meeting. I'm going to go into this meeting. I'm going to just focus on keeping my chest out, keeping like an air in the, like I always say, keep like a small bit of breath in the top of your chest, where you basically hold a nice strong position, and then you walk into that room and you try hold it for the next couple of minutes. Simple way to improve your posture, and if you do it repeatedly, you're going to build tolerance in the muscles that hold that posture, and as a result, then you'll be able to do it for longer. If we focus on that, like that's a small change to make as a big habit. In terms of like, if we can focus on the little things that will contribute to the habit, and because we do need to build tolerance. Anyone who's still trying to hold that position that I said to hold it, where you're like shoulders back and chest out, I'm sure you're fatiguing and getting tired by now, because I've been talking about it for a couple of minutes, and it's a tough position to hold because all your muscles are contracting. All your muscles are really, really squeezing in position, and as a result, if you don't have the tolerance, they're going to break down. I do apologize if anyone can hear the banging in the background. I have construction here beside the house. The boys love, this is probably their favorite thing whenever I start recording, they start hammering something whether they need to or not. That's what it feels like from my situation. There's always some banging going on. But that's all I'm going to say about posture. You can relax now if you've been holding that posture. Okay, so that's the next one. Posture. What are my thoughts on improving it? You need to improve your confidence. It's absolutely key. After that, we're looking at neck and upper trap soreness and flare-ups. How to deal with it and how to strengthen that area. It actually ties in very well to the two before this. the next one after it even does as well, with relationship between muscle tightness, mobility and injury. We are looking at neck and upper trap soreness and flare-ups, how to deal with it and how to strengthen the area. Well, first off, we need to understand, as I talked about, why is it kicking up? Pain is a protective mechanism. It's an alarm. It'll go off whether you have pain or whether you don't have pain, or whether you have an injury or whether you don't have an injury. That's just the nature of pain, and it's an extremely good way of learning more about your body and your mind. And it's a great interconnection between the body and the mind, because it goes into, I guess, a lot of learning about your body, learning about how you feel about where you are in your life, learning about like what goals you have. Are you motivated? Are you disciplined? There's a lot more to pain than actually just in itself the pain that you're dealing with. And if we can use that, we can become aware of it and we can work on it, you can make a lot of change. So neck and upper trap tightness, as I said, we need to understand why it's flaring up. Is it weakness related? Do you actually need to build strength there to improve it, because the tolerance has dropped down? So it's weakness related and you're getting pain because the joints are taking a hit. Because I don't know, if like I get neck pain and tightness after jiu-jitsu, because I sometimes, not always, because there's someone hanging on your head. There's some lad with his hand on the back of your head and is pulling it down. But as a result, I have a way better tolerance to it now. So I wouldn't get any issues if I was sitting down doing work, or if I was on a day-to-day, because my tolerance to that movement is a lot better, because I have a lot more strength there. I will have pain and tightness the day after in a lot of cases, because if I'm fatigued, I'll feel it more. So we need to understand why it's there. And if it's weakness, obviously, you need to work on strength. If it is not weakness and it's more that it's stress or fatigue related, then we need to take care of the issues that are contributing to that. And how do we do that? How do we take care of those issues? Well, you need to work on your sleep. You need to improve your sleep. But if you're not aware that, okay, every night that I sleep 5 hours, I'm waking up the next day, I have pain and tightness, you're going to think that pain and tightness or that issue is because of your sitting position, your posture. You're going to connect it to a lot of other things. And I was actually talking to a guy this week at jiu-jitsu, and he was like, I'm getting a lot of neck pain now from the way I'm sitting. And he was like, and I want to change jobs, or I want to go and travel and work in another place, but I don't want to, I know a desk is going to make a huge difference because it's going to contribute to my neck pain. And I was chatting to him and I said, okay, well, you're getting it more now than you were before. It's like, yeah, in the last week or two, it's really flaring up. And I was like, oh, and your jiu-jitsu isn't like the amount you're training. How is that? And he's like, it's pretty the same, but maybe hitting 1 or 2 extra sessions. So first sign, what goes off there is, okay, well, he's actually after increasing his exercise activity. So there's an element of adaptation that needs to happen with that. And as a result, you're going to have more pain and tightness. It's just simple as. And then I said, okay, and how is your sleep the last week? And he said, sleep is really broken. I'm only getting maybe 5 hours a night to 6 hours a night. And I just said to him, okay, I understand, like you might feel it's the desk or you might feel it's that the position that you're in at work, but I would say if you cleared up your sleep just by itself without doing any exercises or anything else, that I'd be very confident that pain would drop down and that you'd have significantly less pain, just because of the fact that his sleep had dropped off, his exercise had increased, so his recovery method had dropped off and his body gets a lot more protective as a result. And I think people need to understand that. If we do understand that, we can make that change, and it's a lot easier to fix these things. So fatigue is huge. Now, if you are looking for actually working on how to improve your neck and upper trap strength, there's a lot of exercises you can do. Like a banded pull apart is a really good one. It's where you have your band here and your thumbs are coming out to the side. That's a really good one because it helps to just build a lot more strength in that area and the upper traps. And you can do it in different positions. You can do it up in front of your face. You can do it down in front of your chest, whatever you want to do. Other ones are like pulling exercises where you're doing single arm rows, pull-ups, or like a lat pull down is a really good one. Mixing those in. Ones that I love, and this is kind of higher level, if you do these early on, my goodness, the DOMs that you get are outrageous. The wrestler curl is where you're lying back on your head and you're basically lifting up your whole body with your neck and your feet. So your feet are on the ground, you're rolling onto your neck and you're lifting up your body. But my goodness gracious, I'm not joking, if you do that, you'll have DOMs like you've never in your life had before. Okay, where it's like you'll have DOMs right up to the base of your skull, so much so that you'd feel that you injured yourself if you hadn't done. That's a really good one. Other ones are like resistance bands where you're holding isometrics, where you have like a band tied around your forehead and you have it tied to the rack behind you, and you're just holding that position and you're keeping it nice and strong. You have one tied to the side and you're doing the same thing, holding for 30 to 45 seconds. This is a really simple way of that I've cleared up my own. If I had neck issues after jiu-jitsu, I've used this method. You're holding 30 to 45 seconds and you're doing 2 to 3 sets. And you're just keep it a light band at the start and build it up. Expect that it's going to be sore and tight after that, but it works well. So that's another one. And then with this, the other thing is that we need to focus on, or we need to understand that, and I know the guy that sent me in this, so this is more of an answer directly to him. We also need to understand that because it's developed over time, because this issue has come on, it's not just something that has kicked up randomly. It's something that has developed over the last couple of years, and it flares up at certain times more so than others. We need to understand that we need to heal that burn spot on the nervous system. So just doing these exercises one day isn't going to get rid of it completely. It's about consistency over time, and it's about consistency over weeks to months. You will see improvements straight away as you start to work on these exercises, but then as your sleep and fatigue drops off, that's going to kick up a small bit more. And if you do take care of that, then you continue to work on it. That's how you make a long-term change. And as I said in the podcast before this one, I keep plugging it. I go into so much more detail because if you listen to this podcast and then you listen to that one after, it's going to solidify what we're talking about. You're going to have a better understanding of it all as a result. Moving on. What is your thoughts on the relationship between muscle tightness, mobility, and injury? This one ties in really well to what we've been talking. It's actually it's funny. I didn't plan it like this. I was just writing them all down, and this actually ties in well. And how did the elites manage it? So there's actually 2 questions that come in there. And the elites, talking about elite sports people in that case. So what's the relationship between muscle tightness, mobility, and injury? Increasing training causes more muscle tightness, and how do the elites manage it? As well as how do you prevent injury?
What's up, guys? Robbie here. I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. I want to take a moment just to personally ask you for your help. If you're enjoying the podcast, would you be willing to share it with someone you think would love it too? Maybe a friend, family member on social media, or even if you just brought it up in conversation with someone you know. The recommendation means the world to us, and it's because of people like you that we get to be able to produce this podcast on a weekly basis. So thank you so much for your support so far, and I would love if you could help us reach even more people who could benefit from it too. Really appreciate you.
First off, let's just lay the foundations as always. So tightness is a protective mechanism. Once we know that, then we can work on that. So we know it's protecting a joint, or it's protecting a joint really is what it's doing. That's what tightness is. And that can happen because of fatigue, it can happen because of weakness, or it can happen as a stress response because the system is overactive and people are getting a small bit more anxious. But fatigue and weakness are kind of the 2 main ones with that. Can be a sign that you need to pull back a small bit. If you're getting a lot of muscle tightness, like if you do a load of RDLs, I always use RDLs as an example because it gives everyone DOMs. And DOMs, for anyone who doesn't know, is delayed onset muscle soreness. It's like when you do a session and 2 days later you have a lot of pain and tightness, but you haven't injured it, you just have more pain and tightness because you haven't done that before. It can be a good sign that you need to pull back a small bit. Like if you're upping your sessions to 2 a day, and this is what this guy who sent it in was talking about, where they were training BJJ and then training wrestling as well, or BJJ and Muay Thai. If you were doing that, if you're upping your sessions to 2 a day, the same rule applies in that you need to be intelligent about how you approach it. You can't just go from somebody who's training once a day and then just double all your sessions and hope that everything comes in line, because even though the elites do it, the elites have a significant amount of training experience. And I'm not saying that you don't. If you're listening to this, I'm not saying that you don't have the training experience, but you need to understand that the elites have training experience with good level of knowledge and what to do. And at a certain stage, the elites, to get there as well, have to have certain abilities, that they're physiological abilities, that they adapt very well and very fast to it. And that's just simple as, okay? So when you are upping your sessions to 2 a day, it's important that when you're focusing and you're noticing that your muscles are starting to get tight, and do you push on after it? Well, first off, take care of your recovery. Up your protein, make sure your diet, your hydration, your sleep and all that is good. I would also introduce a nap. I am a massive advocate for naps. My God, if there was a way that I was getting paid for making people take more naps, I'd be a millionaire, because I always tell people to take naps. It's such a simple recovery tool. If you have the means to do it, I would say to everyone to try fit in a 20 to 26 minute nap in the middle of the day, especially if you're training twice a day. If you're dealing with muscle tightness, if you're dealing with pain, if you're dealing with anything, fit a nap in, see how you feel after. You might be a bit groggy, keep it 20-26 minutes. Don't be sleeping for hours, because that's going to affect your sleep at night and you're just going to add to the issue. Make sure that you're being smart about your naps when you are doing it. Now, once we do that, Okay, so you're obviously squeezing in your nap. You have all your recovery stuff right. Then you need to look at your load management. If you're doing a 2 a day on a Monday and a 2 a day on a Tuesday, you'd probably look at taking the Wednesday as an easier day. And this is completely individual with this stuff. So you don't want to just go 2 a days every day, all day, because then you're going to break down. Now, if that's the goal and you want to build up to that, you want to build up to like being able to do 2 a days, 5 days a week or 6 days a week. First off, most elites wouldn't do that because it would just cause it to break down. They'd like at a certain stage, they would just break down. And if they were doing 2 a days, the other thing is that with the elites, they don't do 100% every day. They do like a skill and then a strength session. And if you're looking at like professional or Premier League footballers, I've worked with a good few Premier League footballers, and when you look at their sessions, if you look at their week breakdown, it's on a Tuesday, they do skill and then they do strength session in the evening. On a Thursday, I'm just speaking about the guys now specifically, other people might do it differently. On the Thursday, they do a small bit more skill in the morning, and then they do a power session in the evening, and that's it. And then on a Wednesday, they might do a small bit of kicking around. At the weekend, they play a match. Like, that's not crazy. So that's very good management. And then a lot of times, I know I made that sound easier, they have another match during the week, so it really depends. But on a basic thing, that's how their week is set up. They do a light gym session, and then they do a power gym session. And then they do your skill, and then they might fit in another skill session or like a kind of a prep session for the game at the weekend. But it's not like train Monday to Friday and play on Sunday. It's not like that at all. It's very well managed. The work that they do in the preseason is the work that kind of builds them up, and the work that they've done for the last 10 years, 15 years is the stuff that has kind of set them up to be able to do that in that position. It's more about refinement. So you need to be smart that if you are doing BJJ and then if you are doing 2 sessions a day, you need to focus on, you can't go 100% in every session all the time, because then you will just get a lot more muscle tightness, and then you're more likely to get injuries as a result. Muscle tightness is a sign. Remember that. It's a sign more so than an issue. It's a sign that the body is starting to get fatigued, or there's an area that's weak. And if we kind of keep that principle in our mind, it makes it a lot easier to deal with these issues. That's why I'm trying to talk about the principles here. I'm not trying to recommend some crazy things. Just keep it simple in a lot of cases. So focus on, when you're looking at those 2 days, you're focused on building them up. You might do Monday, Tuesday a double, then you take Wednesday off, you assess then how you are Thursday, and you can consider doing it again. And let's say if you have the weekend off, you could do Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, take the 2 days off at the weekend, take your Wednesday off. Or you could break it down, so you do a hard session on a Monday, a skill session on a Tuesday. You do 2 hard sessions and then you do 2 skill sessions. Or I would actually probably do it the other way around. If it was me, from a skill acquisition point, I would probably do it the other way around. I'd do skill first and then fatigue after. So that's the first one. It's about trial and error. It's about understanding your body. It's about noticing your signs of fatigue. Everyone has different signs of fatigue, and the better understanding that you get of them, and the more that you recognize the signs of fatigue, the better you'll be able to manage your load and manage your body. So for some people, a really quick run off, I always do this with clients, signs of fatigue are increases in muscle tightness, increases in pain out of nowhere, noticing that it's difficult to get out of bed in the morning. I actually did a full podcast on this, if anyone wants to check it out. Noticing that it's difficult to get out of bed in the morning, being more anxious, feeling more stressed out, if you are pissed off at people all the time, if you have no patience, okay, if you're lacking motivation, all of these are signs of fatigue where you need to build up, and you need to look at your recovery sessions and look at what you can do around it. So that's a really simple one on that. If you get an understanding of those, it helps you to manage load better, and then you can build it up over time. Just don't start doing 2 days every day because you want to and you feel like it's the best way of doing it. That you're going to get muscle tightness, then you're going to lose your mobility. Like, mobility changes on a day-to-day based on your muscle tightness, based on your levels of fatigue and your levels of stress. Simple as. You can improve someone's mobility strictly by just getting them to sleep better because they were more recovered. So hopefully that covers that one. The next one then, actually I'm going to tie this one in. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to come back to it. When to use breathing in mobility training. This is a perfect tie into the last one, because I was talking about if you sleep better, you can improve your mobility. If you want to improve your mobility, you can do breathing exercises as well, because that calms down the nervous system, reduces that level of tightness, and improves overall your mobility. So for someone who's like trying to improve their shoulder mobility or their hip mobility, if you do a small bit of breathing before that, where you do like a box breathing set, and a box breathing is 5, 5, 5, and 5. So it's 5 seconds in, 5 seconds hold, 5 seconds out, and 5 seconds hold. If you do that for 3 to 4 minutes just before you get into the mobility session, your body will be a lot more relaxed. You'll be in a better position to do the exercises and you're going to move through them a lot more fluidly because of the fact that your nervous system is not as hyped up and as ramped up. And as we know that muscle tightness is a result of fatigue, or it's a protective mechanism. We take down the protective mechanism by just doing that breathing right before it. So it's a really simple way of doing it. Calms the nervous system. Great if you've had a really busy day and you want to do a stretching session that evening. Just do your 5, 5, 5 and 5, do 3 to 5 minutes, and you'll find that you're going to move through everything so much better. I always integrate some form of breathing into the programs that I do with people. The other one that you can do is when you're actually doing the session. So when you sit down and you do your mobility session and you're going into a movement like a thoracic rotation and you're coming all the way around and you're hitting that point of your end range, try to do a 3 to 5 second exhale while continuing to push into that end range, and you'll notice that your range will increase. So if you're coming all the way around and you hit that point and then you go for your 5 second blow, you'll notice that your range will increase because your nervous system calms down and your body feels more comfortable going into that position. And if you do it consistently with every exercise, you're going to get a lot more range in it. But then I would say if you have that range, it's always important to work on it. So you calm the nervous system, you increase the range, and then you build strength in that range if you want to keep it long term. That's how breathing affects your mobility, and that's why it's important to incorporate the two of them in if you're looking to get more out of it. Now there's loads of breathing exercises. I know a few, but my God, there's people who really go into this, like into a lot of detail. Most of them though, like let's say Wim Hof's one, that's more of a ramping up your nervous system, so it might not be the best one right before it, but like Oxygen Advantage is good because it's like nice, relaxed, slow, calm breathing. You could use other ones, as I said, the box breathing, the rhythmic breathing. There's lots of different forms of it. If anyone wants to check out like Brian McKenzie, it's very good. He's a breathing expert. Patrick McCowan, Wim Hof is obviously excellent as well. There's loads. I know Breathe by James Nestor is good as well. So there's lots of different ways you can look at that. But it's important to try to use some form of breathing before your exercises so that you get more out of it. Simple as, if you forget to do it and you're already in the middle of them, you can come back and just look at doing that exhale 3 to 5 seconds as you're going through the movement. So I've only 2 to 3 left. The next one is SI joint pain in a 43-year-old lady. Very specific. So what we can do is I've talked about a lot of the principles of pain before this, and those principles apply to everyone across the board. It doesn't matter what diagnosis you have. The principles of pain apply to everybody. It doesn't change. Even if you have a sprained ankle where you just went out and you sprained it, the principles of pain still apply to you in terms of you can calm it down by doing certain exercises. It is a protective mechanism. There's a lot more to that, okay? And if we understand that and we apply it, we can take down the whole body, whole system sensitization. For this one specifically, I would check out the next podcast, the podcast that I've done, because I go into more detail on it. You have a better understanding of it. It's one that I'd really push for back pain, because like SI joint pain, lower back pain, non-specific low back pain, they generally have the same root in from where they come from, and they're just, a lot of the time you're looking at different diagnoses. So what I would say is, for this one, it's really, really important to focus on the basics first. So focus on your general movements first. When you have something that kicks up, always come back to this, where you're just bending down, you're trying to get your hands to your knees, and you're trying to get your hands to your toes. You're touching down, you're trying to get all the way down to the ground. The next one then is like, think about how you can do little light rotations. I know these sound simple, but they go a long way. Light rotations, light extensions. Think about like turning your hips down, where you stick your butt out and then turn your hips up. So like I don't want to use the actual terms where it's like anterior and posterior tilt, but if you use these movements, it's a great way of getting more movements into that area. Do like a wide leg rotation. After that, SI joint issues. What's your walking tolerance like? Are you able to do more walking? Can you try fit in a 15 to 20 minute walk? If there's one thing I push as much as naps, it's taking a walk, because a walk is a great way of clearing up pain. It actually calms your nervous system and helps you to move a lot better, and it just helps to clear your head, helps the body to improve circulation. There's a lot more to that. So walking is a big one that I would also push. With that one especially, and you're looking to build it up over time, if you're not doing it, I would just try ease your way into it. And then, as I said, like at 20, and people always say to me, I walk a lot at work. It doesn't make a difference if you walk at work a lot. As I said, it's not specifically that we're just looking at the mechanical. There's the psychological as well, where you're going out and you're going for a walk to clear your head, and you're trying to go for a walk in nature. That's the other side of it as well. There's a lot more to a walk than just actually getting out and getting moving. So I would push that. Otherwise, we're looking at pulling your knees to your chest, maybe introducing some light exercises like a lunge, where you're going down, you're lunging in position, and you can do a lunge while holding onto like a chair or a table if you find it difficult at the start. You might just start and do a quarter lunge and then a half lunge, and then you're looking to get the knee to the floor. But if you are lacking these positions, it's a great sign that generally they need to be improved on. And a lot of people who are dealing with this SI joint do have a lot of tightness and restriction when they go into this position, and it actually contributes to that pain a small bit more. So we need to make sure that if we can work into position and work through it, we're going to get a lot out of it. And so that's a simple one, is try your lunges, try your squats, try your leg swings where you're holding onto a chair beside you and you're swinging out your leg. All of these things are going to help hugely. And when it comes to the lunges, it may be that you actually need to focus on the bottom of the lunge more so than the actual full movement, where you're sitting, you lunge down into position and you're kind of holding that bottom position and you're just moving over and back in that like half kneeling style position. That will really help. Glute bridges, I know they're probably overprescribed in back pain because they're like the best thing, and they're, oh, my glutes aren't activating. Glutes always activate. If they don't activate, you can't stand up. So well, that's another side. But yeah, glute bridges are really good. Single leg glute bridges, RDLs, deadlifts, all the basics. Like nothing new or crazy here, but it's just about easing yourself into them. Like you don't have to go for a real heavy RDL or a real heavy deadlift. Just practice the movement. And when you're looking at SI joint pain, you have to focus on, okay, how can I get more movement into the hips, the lower back, and the thoracic spine? And if you get all those moving together, you'll find that it'll ease everything out. Because the issue there that's kicking up a lot of times with the SI joints, it's that I said it's more of a non-specific one, so it's a lot of things contributing together. Outside of that, then have a goal, have something that you need to get back to. If you're just dealing with this issue, this is a really, really important fact. Is if you're dealing with an issue, you hear me talking about it all the time, having a goal makes such a difference because you can see the improvement. If you don't have a goal and you just want to get rid of pain, you don't see any improvement. Okay, so it could be that I want to, let's say, be able to run for 3 to 4 kilometers. That's something that I push all the time with clients, especially with back issues and back pain, is running, because running itself is a great way of building up a tolerance. A lot of people don't like it, but it's a good way of, when you run a 5K, if you build up to a 5K, the process to get to a 5K gives you a confidence that you can continue to improve if you can continue to run. It's a simple process, but it goes a long way. And if you do that specifically, like where you are building up to your 5K, it's going to help you overall, because you'll notice then that, okay, actually I had a lot more pain at the start and now I don't have as much pain. And just literally that way of thinking helps a lot. So I would say build up to that, have a goal. Lastly, I would check out the ebook. I put out an ebook recently on the root cause of these chronic issues, and you can just check that out on my Instagram profile. Go in, or I'll put a link into the bottom of this podcast. Go into the description, click into click into Linktree and check out that link. And it's basically, you just read it. It's about 1,500 words. If you go all the way through it, you'll find it'll align a lot more with what you need to do and how you can get a better understanding of it. And all of these questions that I've talked about with pain and everything, it's a root cause of every issue. So just please go on, check it out, read it, and see what you think. Because as I said, pain, one thing about it is it's across the board going to be the same for everybody. Like how, let's say that what causes pain is going to be the same for everybody. I know that's such a blanket statement, but when you read the book, you'll understand. It's basically neurologically driven. So pain is always, whether you sprain it in your ankle or you do anything, pain is always derived from your brain and nervous system. And then everything else around that, let's say when you've sprained your ankle, so it's going to give you more pain, it's a protective mechanism. Then all these other things contribute. And I talk about like how a soldier is able to get shot in war and they're able to continue on without noticing anything. And people say, oh, it's the adrenaline. Well, if it was the adrenaline, also that means that it's controlled by something. So the pain is still there. It's still neurologically driven. Check it out. It's really, I have to say, it took me a long time to write it. It took me a long time to go into to actually go through it and then go through the drafts and then get the frequently asked questions and tell people how it applies to them. So check that out and you'll learn a lot more about it. Last question. How much do you value rest and downtime? And what does it mean to you? Ooh, very, very, very good question. How much do you value rest and downtime, and what does it mean to you? I'm actually going to leave that question there for a second, and whoever's listening to this, I want you to think about that yourself. How much do you value rest and downtime? And what does it mean to yourself? While I formulate an answer that will be some way honest in this. Well, not some way honest. I'm going to try to be as honest as I can with this one. Rest and downtime for me, I'm generally not somebody who enjoys just sitting down and doing nothing, whether that be watching TV or watching series. I prefer my rest and downtime. I prefer to be engaged in something, whether that be I'm playing guitar, or if I'm actually doing a bit of journaling or doing a bit of reading, or like I prefer to be doing something that I feel like I'm improving on it. And that's just me, myself. It's just maybe the way that I'm wired in a way. I feel like I have to kind of be improving on things at a time to time. Now I can watch series, but rarely do I ever watch series. Like I don't really know the last series that I've watched. I actually watched a couple episodes of The Sopranos, probably the last one that I watched. But other than that, I haven't really. There's no series that I can say that I've actually watched all the way through in the last. Wow, now that I said it out loud, I don't think there's any series that I've watched all the way through and finished in a long time. Whatever. So I don't. That for me, it's just not for me. So if I was thinking about it, if I had to watch something, it would be a documentary, generally on something, because I feel that I need to learn a lot. And so rest and downtime to me is a skill that I'm practicing. I like to relax with friends. That's actually probably what it is. If I was looking at doing nothing at all, I would still have to be I'd like to be with friends, relaxing, or with people, and kind of being present in what I'm doing and where I can talk to them. Otherwise, like light stretching, doing a bit of movement helps a lot as well. Watching videos on YouTube about like jiu-jitsu or language learning or business is a big one for me. As well as looking up like new topics on like health and fitness and kind of understanding different perspectives. I try to get like a well-rounded perspective, try not to go one way completely. And the only way I can do that is you have to try get the weird and wacky as well, and see why they're pushing that, because generally people don't pull everything out of the blue. Generally there's some, Father said that you can always pick up something off everybody. You don't have to take it in and apply it, but generally people are speaking from a belief or a value, and I think that just checking out those extra, the way people talk about things and the way people speak about things, you can always learn something off of everybody, I think. So I think hanging out with people is a nice one, and chatting to people, as well as researching, looking up new things, looking up new subjects. And yeah, really what is rest and downtime to me is I have to be engaged in something, or I'm sleeping and I'm taking a nap. I try to avoid scrolling. If I get caught scrolling on Instagram or TikTok, I know that I'm tired. I know that I'm very fatigued if I do, because I'll just mindlessly be scrolling, and then I'll catch myself and I'll have to try stop it. I often start my mornings slow and finish my days slow. What that means is that I start my mornings. I have actually a good routine at the same time, mostly every day. I know I was talking about I needed to get back into this, but mostly every day I get up now. I meditate, or I do like a gratitude kind of meditation. I know this sounds like such standard at this stage, like standard kind of Instagram stuff, but I do get up and I do my gratitude, 12 minutes of gratitude or meditation, and then I'll either go into reading, or I will jump into like a bit of study on some subject, and I will do a light bit of journaling as well, and I often just write a question down and I try to answer it the next day. But on that topic of, let's say, hanging out with mates, I was actually chatting to a mate recently, and I was talking about like the difference in Ireland and Argentina. If anyone doesn't know, I'm living in Buenos Aires at the moment, and I was saying like one of the biggest things I miss from being at home is just being able to sit down and kind of relax with the boys and just chat to them. So I think that's something that is probably my way of relaxing. It's definitely different for everybody though. I would like to know what your idea of rest and downtime is, and what that actually means to you, because it is a very interesting subject. It's definitely something that everyone needs to have some form of. Can't be working all the time, can't be training all the time, but I think it's the mindset that makes a difference with it. The mindset of I'm engaging in something else. and then I'm either engaged in something or I'm sleeping. That's kind of the way I look at it in a lot of ways. And that's why the guitar is a huge one for me as well, where you just sit down and you just strum away, and it doesn't have to have any goal. I don't need to be trying to learn anything new. I can just try to get into rhythm and just go with the flow, doing a bit of shadow boxing, messing around. Yeah, interesting question. But that's all I'm going to talk about today. I would, as I said, I'd like to hear what you value, how you value rest and downtime. Maybe send that on to me on Instagram and let me know what your thoughts are on that one, because it is different for everybody. But I'm not going to go on too much longer. Thank you everybody for listening today. Thank you to everybody who sent in the questions. I really appreciate that. It's I hopefully was able to cover them all. I did try to cover the principles, and I had to take some of the questions and kind of push them together. So maybe if you didn't hear me answer your question specifically, it's just because I needed to make sure that I was covering everything, and a lot of it was based around posture, and a lot of it was based around pain, which I would expect, considering this podcast is mostly around that. So that's if anyone has any other questions, you can always, don't ever hesitate. You can always just send them on to me on Instagram. If you're dealing with an issue or an injury, just send them on to me on Instagram, and I'll hopefully point you in the right direction. Otherwise, if you want to check out the ebook that I put out, Understanding the Root Cause of All Chronic Back Pain is what I call it, and it should be Understanding the Root Cause of All Pain. You're looking at this neurological issue, and this idea of the burn spot. So with chronic pain especially, you're looking at the idea of a burn spot, and you just listen to this next podcast, actually the one that's after this one, because I go into more detail on it. But you can check out the link in my bio and link in the description. It's basically you can go in, download the book and get it and get started from there. Otherwise, thank you again. I appreciate everyone listening in, and I will chat to you all again next week. Have a good one. Okay guys, thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you're looking to learn more about what we do, as well as check out any of the mobility and rehab programs we have available, just head over to the description of this podcast and you will find a link to all the programs there. As always, thank you for listening, and I will chat to you all again in the next episode. Have a good one.